Regardless of whether or not I'm shooting photo or video, one of the more difficult parts of the project can be deciding on its final look. I've semi-resolved this issue when it comes to my photo work because I just decided to switch to film. And as many of you know, when you shoot on film, a majority of your final look is determined by the film stock you chose. So that's all well and good when it comes to photos, but what about video? Now the cost of shooting your photos on film isn't cheap, and it's even much more expensive when you try to do it on video. Each reel of film will probably last you 2 minutes. The camera itself probably costs you thousands, and the development and scanning is probably triple the price it would be for photos. Thankfully, in the modern age, we have emulation software such as Dehancer, which will allow us to get the film look on our digital videos. Dehancer is a film emulation software which helps bring the analog look onto digital formats. And using Dehancer, you can access over 60 film stocks from photo and video for your digital needs. Full transparency, Dehancer did reach out to me and ask me to review their software, but by no means am I getting paid for this. But if this video did help inform your decision on whether or not you want to get Dehancer for yourself, you can use my code PAPER for 10% off. Now the way I'm going to go about this is by telling you some of the things I do enjoy about the software, what I don't enjoy about the software, and who I think it's primarily for. This will not be a technical breakdown on the entire software and all of its features, as there are many videos like that showing you exactly how to make your photos look like film and how to make your videos look like film using the Dehancer software. I don't have the technical knowledge to tell you any of that, and there are people much more qualified to do so, nor do I find it the most interesting videos to watch. We're breaking it down pretty simply for people like me that just want to hear the main points and whether or not they should or should not get it. Okay, so right away jumping into Dehancer on desktop, I'm going to just show you how simple and easy it is to upgrade your footage from very basic and vanilla looking to something a little more aesthetically pleasing, a little more eye-catching, something that has more character to it than this, which is what you have after the color space transform. All this footage was recorded on my Sony a7 III, and it was in S-Log 2, and I'm converting it to Rec 709. Again, this isn't a technical breakdown, it's just showing you how I did things, right? This honestly did not take much work. I just know that in this scenario, if I were shooting on film with my camera for photos, I would be using something like Portrait 800 because the sun's going down here and we're in the shade and majority of the shot is within the shade, right? But we still have a strong light source back here where the sunset is shining on this tree. So immediately I applied the Portrait 800. I went to my prints, added Kodak Endura glossy paper. There aren't many options for the prints, unfortunately, but you really don't need to go through that many until you find a good one. So it's honestly to your benefit. And after applying it, I just adjusted the exposures a little bit and the strength of the color, right? And that was literally it. That turned my image from this to this. And if you want to take it a step further and truly try to emulate the film look, you can, and add the film grain, right, from 35mm, you can do that, or you have options from 8 to 65 with intervals of ISOs from 50, 250, and 500. But for this example, I'm going to be using 35mm for all my settings, just so you can see. Then I've applied halation for 35mm, which you see doesn't really take effect in too many areas. Not that crazy of a difference. What makes the biggest difference, honestly, is going to be the bloom, which is going to be especially prominent back here where the sunset is hitting this tree, as you can see. And all of this is very adjustable and customizable to your liking. So maybe if it's too strong or too weak, you can raise it, lower it, or change the kind of film that you're trying to emulate, right? From 8 to 16 to 35 to 65. So again, our image goes from here to here in just a few clicks, right? Now, you won't find the same experience on all your footage where it's that simple and that easy. Nor am I saying that this shot is completely perfect now, and I would send this out for a paid project and it's done, right? Obviously, it could use a lot more work, but if this is just for content creation, or this is just something you want to get out quickly, maybe for your YouTube, your Reels or your TikToks, right? Make them just that much better. This is a pretty good place. Dehancer is pretty good for that. If you want to get a decent look fast, and by no means can I say that this exactly emulates film film accurately for video. I have no experience shooting video film, but it does clearly look better, right? And the amount of time it would have taken me to create this look myself, with a bunch of serial nodes and all kinds of things, honestly, it's worth the trade-off to just add Dehancer and just make it look 10 times better, honestly, than it did before, or than I could have done with all my efforts and all the time that would have taken me, right? So one of the best things about the fact that Dehancer is so well integrated in DaVinci is that you're able to do something like this, where you create your look, you have this scenario, right? Sunset, shot in the shadows, right? And you can take that look, you can grab the still, and then export that as a power grade, right? This way, when you have a similar scenario, or if you just like this look, right, and want to be able to apply that look onto other footage, you can do that with the Dehancer settings saved that were in this node, which I know may not seem like that big of a deal, but it does make a difference when you're trying to have a consistent aesthetic across multiple videos. In, you know, say if you have a vlog channel, or if you're making reels or whatnot, and you want to establish like a visual identity, right? It's just great that Dehancer works so seamlessly in being part of that workflow, instead of being this whole other thing that you have to learn and add on. So one of the things to note is that if you have worked with film before, you will have a slight advantage when it comes to finding the right look for the right scenarios and which film stock to choose. Because I know from my experience that when I do photography in environments like this, where there's these strong light sources that are within the frame, I definitely my go-to film has usually been Cinestill, right? So I applied that here, and what do you know? I was right. It looks pretty good, right? Also, on top of that, there is Fujifilm 3513 print film enabled as well. But even without that, doesn't look half bad, right? Let's see the amount of work Dehancer's doing. Okay, but the 3513 print film is that good, like is that nice finishing touch that is needed for the photo. All right, and for my other settings, it's nothing too crazy. I just have the grain enabled, really. If I wanted to apply the halation and the bloom, I could do that too, right? But one of the more disappointing things about Dehancer is that it's not any different when it comes to applying the accurate Cinestill halation like all the other presets and emulation softwares. It also fails in that department. What do I mean? Well, look, when you apply the remjetless look, or like the red light look that Cinestill is known for, right? Then it affects it on the subject, which I'm not a big fan of, and it barely affects it where it normally would, which is on the light source, right? I think they can probably improve this in the future if they maybe add some sort of, like AI subject detection, right? Where it will, separate where that remjetless halation is applied to, where it's like, okay, this is clearly a light source and this is clearly a person. So if you want, we can only apply it to the light, which I hope they do in the future, because that'd be great. I can show you on screen right now. I have photos from similar scenarios that I've taken where it does not affect the subject and it only affects the light, and that's how Cinestill is supposed to look, right? Even with some tweaking I've done when I wasn't recording, I haven't really been able to find an accurate way of applying the halation the way it would on Cinestill 100T film. But it's just a small gripe with me. Maybe you may not think it's that big of a deal, but I personally quite like it. I don't know if it'll ever get as good as the real thing, but here's hoping, because because they are constantly improving it and they are listening to feedback. So hopefully this is something that they will implement in the future, right? And one of the underrated things that I think is especially nice about Dehancer is that it gives you freedom to experiment and try stuff without having to spend the extra money and get these films and try them out, which is part of the fun on film, which is to try different things, experiment, you know, fail, and it becomes a memory. And you know, film is great, but it can be expensive, right? So a good example of that is right here, where I just changed the look from Cinestill to Ektachrome, and I've never shot Ektachrome, but this honestly doesn't look too bad. Maybe if I pushed it that way, right? It's a bit contrasty, of course. And this is again on Fujifilm 3513 with some 16mm film grain, ISO 500, relation 35mm, and bloom 35mm. Yeah, I might just pull back the tonal contrast a little bit, lower the exposure, but you see what I mean? Allows you for freedom of experimentation without the extra cost of buying a different type of film that you're not so comfortable with and getting it developed and taking all your shots. Of course, you can try multiple different films on the same shot, right? Until you find one that you're satisfied with. Of course, as I said before, Dehancer isn't the one-click solution to color grading that'll make your images look cinematic in seconds, right? But it will do a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to taking a bland looking shot such as this and giving it a little bit more character like this. Now, for those that are especially lazy like me that do want to achieve good looking footage fast, I would highly suggest the Dehancer mobile app. It's pretty good, honestly. They asked me to try it out and I really wasn't expecting much, but if you shoot on Apple Log, if you have an iPhone that can shoot on Apple Log, I would highly suggest trying it out with your Dehancer subscription. The way it works is if you have an iPhone that can record Apple Log, you're going to want to open your camera, go to video, and make sure you turn it to log footage. This allows you to record in log similar to how you would on a DSLR, you know, like my Sony a7 III. I'm just going to do a little test right here. Is it recording me? All right, it's recording me. So here we are in my room, nothing special, right? And it looks pretty gray, but obviously that's because it's in log. Once you go into the Dehancer app and take that exact same footage, you can see how quickly it goes from being boring old footage of me to something a bit more interesting. Maybe if we tried this preset of Cinestill 800T and Kodak Endura. Now I have better examples in real life scenarios. This shot I took the other day. Again, before, after. As you can see, they have a bunch of presets for you within the app itself, which I wish was within the desktop version, which I think they're going to add. But again, you can create your own if you so desire, or maybe copy some of the settings from here and apply them to your desktop footage. But it really doesn't require that much work. As you can see, here's the original footage, right? It sort of color space transforms it once you go have it under the original, so it doesn't look as gray as it did when you shot it, right? But if you take a preset like maybe Fujicolor Natura 1600 plus Fujifilm 3513, I can't pronounce things today, it looks a bit better. That being said, it will take a while to export, especially depending on the length of the footage, but it does not require that much work. It truly can take less than 5 minutes to take boring footage and make it look a little more interesting with the presets that they have, and you're even able to make presets on the app as well.
So again, I think whether or not, regardless if you're bad at color grading or decent or a professional color grader, you'll find some use for Dehancer within your workflow. Especially if you are a fan of film and you have previous experience shooting film, you're gonna find that you have a bit of an easier time deciding on your film stocks and your prints and making the colors the way you would expect them. Personally, I definitely see myself using Dehancer as part of my node tree in all my future projects, because it has so many tools that I'm gonna find one use or another for it, whether it's the halation, the film grain, or the film stocks or the prints. I think it's something that definitely necessary in order to help me separate my work from the vanilla run-of-the-mill digital look and give it a little bit more of the analog edge to it. Even if you're someone like myself who considers himself not too great at color grading, you'll be able to mess around with it a bit more in terms of experimenting and really discovering your own style. My final thoughts on Dehancer is that I think there's something in there for everybody. Whether or not you're someone that's not too great at color grading like myself, you'll be able to find looks that enhance your work by giving it a bit of that analog look without breaking the bank on the cameras, lenses, and film stocks that come with shooting 16mm film or even Super 8 film. And even if you're a professional colorist, you'll find that there's a lot of potential within Dehancer to improve your work even further, because I know there are certain colorists on YouTube here that use it for its film grain, maybe they use it for its stocks, maybe they use it just for the halation, but there's something in there for everybody. So if you think it's something that you would consider adding to your workflow and you want to try it out, there'll be a link in the description. And if you want to consider purchasing it, again, I have a code for 10% off, paper. I would greatly appreciate it if you use it, as it helps me out a ton. And if you do want to see any of my photo work, you can check out my Instagram at picsbypaper. But yeah, I think that's all I have to say about the software for now. If they make any significant updates, I might make a YouTube video on it and they, fix the issues that I had mentioned before. With that being said, I appreciate you for watching. Thanks for watching. If there's anything that you'd like to see me make a video on in the future, please do let me know. So yeah, thanks for watching.